So when you're trying to build this self-worth in order to finally have these great relationships, which is possible, you need to figure out what's the next right thing for me to do.
In each person's circle that's, listening to this, that has someone that might be one notch above, two notches above where your self-worth is. Look to them, see what they're doing differently than you are, because likely their behavioral patterns are a little bit different from yours.
Welcome to Evolve Ventures, the one place where people like you can dependably go to shift your consciousness to unlimited potential. I am your host, Bianca Thomas.
And I am your host, Emilia Smith. Welcome back to another episode. We are in the month talking about all things self-worth. And this episode, number 112, how self-worth impacts relationships, is definitely going to be a heavy one. So I just want to put that out there for our listeners. If you are struggling with self-worth, or maybe don't necessarily, determine that on your own accord, maybe you've been feeling taken advantage of recently, or maybe there's, a degree of hopelessness that you might be feeling, worthlessness, or even some degree of unlovability in your life right now. We're going to be digging into why that might be a little bit through Bianca and I's personal experience and what we've observed in some of our community and network and clients and whatnot, and how that really does impact your relationships. So stay tuned for all the things that are going to be coming in this episode, and join us as we kind of head into the journey. And with that out there, I will put a disclosure that, again, this is a heavier topic, very delicate. So if at any point you do feel emotionally flooded, your physiology kind of washes over you, you start to disassociate, you start to have, flashbacks or episodes that aren't necessarily supporting your growth, rather maybe re-traumatizing you or whatnot, we want to encourage you to take a moment, pause this episode, and revisit when you are in a good space, because we definitely don't want these episodes to dig you in a deeper hole than you might feel you might be in.
Yeah. It ain't easy talking about self-worth. Not even a little bit.
She ain't easy. No.
She ain't easy. So the episode we're talking about today is how self-worth impacts relationships. And oh my Lanta, the amount of stories that I could tell is it's exponential. It really is. But where I'll start is with my own stories. So when I was 16, I've talked about this a lot, but when I was 16, I was miserable. I hated myself. I felt as though I felt like there was nothing to me. Like I wasn't a person. I wasn't good enough. Nobody was ever going to love me or care about me. And it was a really dark time in my life because I just felt so utterly worthless and hopeless, and that things were never going to change. And I didn't feel loved by my family, and I didn't have like any real friendships, and I was just a shell. But like you could never tell. You wouldn't know because I was really good at hiding it. But I'm 16 and I have all of that in me. I have all of those feelings and thoughts and that lack of worth and lack of any belief in myself. And so what do I do to try to overcome that? I find a relationship. I was on a podcast the other day and I was telling the story. But so when I was 16, I met this guy, and 6 days 6 days after meeting this person, he tells me he loves me. So me right now, I'm like, red flag, run away. Like, no, run. But back then, I'm 16. I had never felt loved. I didn't know what love was, and I didn't think anyone was ever going to love me. So I'm like, oh my God, someone loves me? Oh my God, someone's going to give me attention? And because I felt so utterly worthless, because I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel cared for, I didn't feel like I had anything going for me, I started a relationship with this person. And when little red flags came up, I didn't notice it, or I dismissed it because, well, this person loves me. But this is the first person that's ever loved me. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's not going to stay like this. It'll work itself out. And over time, the red flags got bigger and bigger and worse, to the point where I started being abused emotionally, mentally, sexually. I was forced to do things that I just never thought that I would do. And now I don't want to take this to like a dark place, but I want this story to kind of highlight when you do not feel good enough, when you do not feel worthy, you are more likely to tolerate things that people who have high self-worth never would, or what you would never tolerate had you had more belief in yourself, had you had a little more love for yourself, had you felt a little more worthwhile. Because I know where I am now. I've done the work. I've done the hard work. I've looked in the mirrors. I've done all of these things. And I would never tolerate what I tolerated back then. Even a year ago, or a year and a half ago, in that last relationship I was in. I look back now, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But it's because I understand now. But when you have low self-worth, when you don't believe in yourself, you're going to tolerate it because you don't believe that better is available.
Alan and I were recording an episode yesterday, and it's because the episode B that you and I had, episode number 6, relationship standards and why you should create them or how you can create them. That's been one of our biggest listened episodes across like the entire time that we've been podcasting. I've sent that out to like hundreds of people, like no lie.
People love that episode.
They really do. And he and I were recording he and I's version of that episode, and that just came up for me while you were talking about that, because when self-worth, what I really see in relationship coaching often, and relationships is, one of the things that Alan had said on a podcast there, that was like, relationships can bring the best parts of life. It's like if you go on a hike by yourself, sometimes it can't equivocate to a hike with your best friend, or a hike with your significant other, or a hike with your grandmother, right? Sharing a moment is so deeply impactful. And like the degree of fulfillment and love and abundance that relationships can bring, what they can also bring is some of the biggest and deepest pains that we have. And when I was thinking about that as it pertains to what you were just saying, how you can tell how, if you were to imagine like different levels, self-worth being the thing at which you're rating, right? 0 to 10. 0 self-worth equals low self-worth. And how do you know that you have that low self-worth, or you or someone else that maybe you have a friend that might be in this spot, and you're recognizing patterns and saying, okay, they're really in a low self-worth place. And I can tell that because of this, what they're tolerating in their life. When you have low self-worth, you tolerate a lot because your standards are very low. And why I brought that that we were just recording that the other night is because you get what you tolerate. You tolerate to where your standards are, and your standards are set based on your own understanding of where your self-worth is. To your point, if you have high self-worth and high self-belief, you'll set the bar for yourself and for everyone around you a lot higher. You'll have higher standards for how you treat yourself and how you're treated. You'll tolerate a lot less bullshit from people. And that's just like sheer fact. And, like I even, thinking about your story going back to the teen years, it's so fascinating because you tolerate so much effing bullshit when it comes to that time frame. And you realize that like in hindsight, you would never tolerate that if you here and now at this age work to go back and talk to that younger version of yourself and who you surround yourself with, how they treat you. If you could shake yourself and say, listen, we need to surround ourselves with better people. We need to surround ourselves with higher worth individuals. And I'm not talking about net worth. I'm talking about what they feel and what they value within themselves. And so often we get caught up in, the external world, what people have, what things we can grip onto, rather than looking at what's inside. How do they talk to themselves when they're frustrated? How do they talk to themselves when they're angry? How do they treat, people, even just like the waitress or the waiter, when things go wrong? And when you have low self-worth, that's when some of the biggest pains I find in relationships tend to come, because you attract people of similar low self-worth around you.
I think that's so hard for people though, because most of us, and when I was in that point in my life, like I didn't know what a person like that was.
I know.
I didn't know there were people out there like that because I hadn't been surrounded by that.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely had no idea. I didn't know what it was like to be treated that way. I didn't know what it was like to treat myself that way because I wasn't around people who were doing that. I wasn't around people who valued themselves at a level 10 like that. I wasn't around people who taught me to value myself like that. Not that my parents or that I grew up in like a environment that like my parents didn't try to tell me those things, but like it never stuck because I just didn't feel it. I think there's so many people out there who are like, and I feel this way because I talk to all of them. My clients are like this, and I used to be like this. You don't know what better would look like because you've never seen it.
You don't
This
believe
is why,
it exists.
They don't believe it exists. That's why, like, when you and Alan first got together, I'm going to get very vulnerable right now, okay? When Emilia and Alan first got together, I genuinely could not be in a room with them. Because their relationship was so abundant and so magnificent, it triggered every insecurity in me. I literally used to avoid going around them because back then I was in a different relationship with someone else who like I never saw, and it was another, again, toxic relationship. And I was like, I'm never going to have what they have. I'm never going to have love like that. So when that relationship ended, and then I end up in that other relationship that I was in, it was the same thing. Well, I'm never going to have what they have, so I better make this one work because at least I got this, which is what kept me there. And so many of my clients have been through the same thing. It's like, I'm never going to have that, so I might as well make the one that I'm in work. So it's like either they have no idea what that good relationship would look like, what a relationship with two people who value themselves and feel worthy and believe in themselves look like, or the opposite. Or not the opposite, but another version of that, which is they have examples around them but they genuinely do not believe that it's possible for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say to those people? Because I think that's really the root of it.
I mean, I think it's really important to look at it from a different perspective too. Like, for example, like, and I 100% hear what you're saying. And I know because I work with a lot of those people as well. And it's fascinating because if you put it in a different vehicle, like for example, your job, if you have a manager or a friend that's screaming and yelling at you, you know, very similar to what your partner is. You're like, if that's just your normal, you're not going to change anything, right? But if you see all of a sudden a friend who you grew up with, they got out of it, you know, that like air quotes there, they got out of the bubble. They got out of the shit show that you guys grew up in. Sorry, I'm swearing way too much on this episode. Apologies.
She's feeling emphatic about this.
Say like you have a friend and they get out of it, you know, you grew up really hard, a lot of grit. You had to grow up really quick because you had no choice. And you see a friend that happened to get out of it. Oh, well, they just got lucky. Right? What if they actually just tried? They took a risk. They got outside of that comfort zone that has a high threshold of tolerating BS. And they just started to say, listen, I'm going to build my self-belief. I'm going to build my self-worth by starting to just try and not break that promise to myself. If someone yells at me, cut them short and say, that's not acceptable. I don't tolerate that. Mirror someone that you know and you look up to. And I know there's people that even you know, B, and you might not believe it's possible for you to increase your self-worth, to increase the people that are around you, like even to get out of the job that treats you like absolute crap. Okay, well, you probably have someone in your life that you can look up to that isn't tolerating that is in a job that has aligned, very respectful communication, that has a partnership that even if you avoid, you know, they're still in a regard that you look to them and you're like, there's something different there. What if I were to just try on that belief, that trying to go doing something for me, even if it's, you know, doing a little bit of self-care, trying on what that even looks like, you know, what used to be so absurd to a belief system or a self-identity, if worked at constantly and tirelessly, I do believe, and I have seen it with people, that can translate to a new version of themselves, to a new version of where their self-worth is. But if you continue to tolerate the stuff that makes you feel like crap, that makes you feel unlovable, that makes you feel worthless and taken advantage of, and you don't put an end to it yourself, no one's going to do that for you. That's the hard work that you and I have both done. No one will do that for you. And so, you know, to those people, I think if you have no one in your life who's already doing that, you know, that's a different conversation. But I definitely think that there's someone out there in each person's circle that's, you know, listening to this that has someone that might be one notch above, two notches above where your self-worth is. Look to them, see what they're doing differently than you are, because likely their behavioral patterns are a little bit different from yours. And if you can just inch up to their level of self-worth by doing some of the things that they're doing or not breaking the promises that you're breaking, you know, that can significantly change the quality of your life. And I always say this to my client, the quality of your life is, yes, determined by the quality of your relationships. But the fact of the matter underneath that is the one thing that determines the quality of the relationships that you allow into your life is the quality of the relationship that you have with yourself. And that starts inner. That's inner relationship work that you gotta do.
That is so true. Listen to the episode that we did before this because we go really deep into how to build that self-worth, and we gave three skills to building self-worth, but I'm going to highlight one of them right now. And there is scientific backing to this, and if you listen to like any high performance coach or any like psychologist or expert in this arena, whatever, or just like anyone on social media, you have to show yourself. You have to do what's a little uncomfortable and try one step.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. When we want to change our life, and I see my clients doing this all the time, and I really have to redirect them. They want to make a change in their life. They want to be better. They want to grow. They want to expand. And they're like, I'm going to do all of these things. Here's 50 things that I have lined out, and this is how I'm going to do them. And I'm going to radically change everything. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are going to fall on your face. And it's not because they can't handle it, because they're incompetent. It's because all of us try to make change so rapidly because of the pain and the discomfort that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm tired of being here. I want to change. I'm going to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why so many people will start a goal and then they can't maintain it. They start a new habit and they can't maintain it because they put these extraordinarily high expectations on themselves, and they bite off more than they can chew. They do more than their current level of they're trying to do more than their current level of capability will allow them to do. It's like if you want to go to the gym and you've only ever been able to squat the bar, and then you try to put 2 plates on each side and then do it, and you're like, I'm going to get this goal. It's like, well, you're probably going to break your back first, and then you're never going to get there, you know? So when you're trying to build this self-worth in order to finally have these great relationships, which is possible, you need to figure out what's the next right thing for me to do. It's like, okay, I have this goal, I have this idea, I have the objective that I want. I want to be this type of person. So let's say that your best friend, okay, I'll use me an example. Emilia and Alan have the best relationship I've ever seen. I've said it time and time again. I will continue to say it until I see someone with a better relationship, but I have yet to see it.
We put in the work, just saying.
For real, I've yet to see it. So I'm like, okay, I have this model. What's one thing I can do to try to be more like them? I'm not going to try to rearrange my entire life because it's not going to work. I'm not at that level yet. It's like when you're playing a video game. You can't just jump to level 50. You got to go level 1, level 2, level 3, beat that boss, level 4, level 5, and gradually and incrementally make your way up. So, okay, well, Emilia and Bianca in the episode before said taking action is the best way to build self-worth. All right, cool. Now Bianca's saying, well, I can't change everything in my life. I got to make small incremental changes. Okay, well, that's really scary because I want everything to change. I'm tired of feeling this way and I feel like I need to change everything. But I promise you that if you take it slow, you'll eventually get there. And that's how you make lasting change. This is why fad diets don't work. Because you try to completely radically change your entire diet to something you've never had before. It lasts for about 3 days and then you binge eat. And then you never want to do a diet again.
Yeah.
So what's the one small thing you can do? So for me, I saw Alan and Emilia. I saw the relationship that they had. I was avoidant of it first. I got into a bad relationship just so I could have someone because I was insecure. And I was like, I'm never going to find love and I'm never going to have one like theirs. So let me just settle for whoever this next person is. I was able to get out of that. But then I was like, okay, this isn't working. I see what they're doing. What's one step I can do? So I asked them, hey, you guys, what was the first thing that you guys did when you were getting out of your toxic relationships and whatever? Make a relationship standard. Well, I don't know how to do that, Emilia. Like, I don't know what my standards are. Okay, well, what's happened in your past? What has already happened that you're like, I'm never tolerating that again? Put that on the list.
That's your must not.
Right. It's like, oh, well, that was easy. I listed like 45 things on there. And then I just gradually and incrementally built on that. And here's the thing. So the next step after that is I just executed on it. I'm like, okay, these are my absolute must-nots. How can I make sure that in my day-to-day, I keep these promises to myself, whether it's in an intimate relationship or regular friendships? And doing those small things has now built me to this place where I do have higher self-worth. I have higher self-belief. Not to the level that like Emilia does, but I'm getting there. You know, and I do this with my clients, and I've seen extraordinary success in my clients in doing this, and I know Emilia has too. You need to slowly prove to yourself over time. And I know for me that my next relationship, I know it's going to be extraordinary because of the fact that I am putting in the work now to ensure that I believe in me, that I love me so much that I will not tolerate less. And this is coming from someone who literally let someone like abuse them going to this, you know, and I know Emilia's had experiences like that too. It's just like, if she was able to go from what she went through to what she has, and if I've been able to do this too, and if we've been able to help hundreds of other people do the same thing, you can get there too. You just have to be willing to take it slow and take the steps to get there.
So true. A small example of this that I'll give, and then we'll wrap this episode up, is, you know, I know we've been talking about this in terms of intimate relationships, but you can apply this frame and this guidance to many other capacities of your life. But I'll give an example for an exercise that I did with a client. So this client struggled and struggles with self-worth. And one of the things that we were looking at, because, you know, she wants her own version of this, a dream relationship, and getting clear on that is absolutely an essential step. But sometimes before you can even get clear on what you want, right, in order to develop those higher standards, to develop that higher self-worth, you have to understand, what are you tolerating now, and what are you tolerating now, and why? So I'll give an example for that. She was talking to many, many people, right? And I know there. A lot of, yeah, I've been on there too. And we call these people that you kind of just like, you know, when you're lonely, you text them. When you want attention, you text them. When you're going out and you want a booty call, you text them, like, right? Or you want to FaceTime. When you're bored
on a Tuesday afternoon, got nothing to do, text them.
You text them, you snap them, you know, whatever in the future, you know, the means of communication of attention will come. These are the people that you go to, and there might be multiple people. And I call these people the bench members. And, you know, when you start to look at your bench and all of your quote unquote players that might be on the bench that you might feel as though you're playing, or you might be someone on someone else's bench, you start to look at that. And you know, I went through this exercise and said, okay, why do we have all these people here? You know, what's the reason? You know, and it's like, oh, well, this one's, you know, I like this person for that, and they have utility here, and, you know, I really enjoy their company, and they, you know, they know the best places to go out to eat, and, you know, all this stuff. So, you know, this is certainly relatable because I know a lot of people experience this, and I'm not shaming this at all. I've definitely been there too. But here's the thing. When you ask yourself, you know, if you want a dream relationship that is so extraordinary, and this might even be by yourself, right? You just want to be happy and fulfilled and single and amazingly in love with yourself. Why is the door open for other people to walk through?
Ooh.
Why are there people on your bench sitting there waiting for you to call them in? Why are you tolerating that? And so, you know, these small steps, they can look like, yes, the work towards that dream partner. But what I find is sometimes, again, you won't believe that you're worth more than you actually are if you're not doing the things on the back end that no one knows about. unless you get one-on-one with Emilia and start asking about it, and we start uncovering these things of like, okay, well, maybe you're struggling over in this arena because you haven't closed the door to these relationships that also treat you like a bench member, right? That aren't treating you like the one and only person that you want to become. I've been there too. And if we don't close those doors, we are never proving to ourselves, again, that action, that one small step, that we are worth way more than this. We are worth treating ourselves better than this. And that's the key here. You are worth treating yourself better than where you're currently at now. And you know that because you've clicked on this, you know that because you're listening, right? And the thing is sometimes, yes, the future, worksheets and relationship standards, absolutely. That is so important, getting clear on what's your dream partner, what's your dream job, what's your dream relationship with yourself look like? Like, are you taking yourself on car rides every Sunday? What does that look like? But also it's the backside. What's the backside that no one knows about? Only you do. And those things that you're not shutting down, that you're not closing the door to, that you're kind of keeping open. It's like keeping a tab open on your computer and just letting it drain, right? It's not going to perform the way it could if you close that tab, right? So anyhow, small little things. But even if it looks like that, get rid of the people that are on your bench. Get rid of the things that are collecting dust. Get rid of the things that are like hopes and just going to continue to be hopes and pull you down back to this place where you have low self-worth because you keep the door open. And I know that's a lot easier said than done. Trust me, I know. But it's, again, those small steps. You don't have to clear the bench all together at one time, and this client in particular, I'm so proud of her. She came back to one of our coaching calls. She's like, haven't talked to anyone on the bench. I'm like, hey, so proud of you. And her self-worth has gone up because, she's closed that door, not because of anything, but because she knows she deserves better than how she was treating herself. And, that's oftentimes what it is. And she didn't necessarily have a ton of people around her life, that didn't treat themselves in a different manner than what she knew, And so sometimes it is just trusting that you can and you must take action that helps to provide alternative evidence to where you are now so that you can finally believe that your worth is where it should be. So,
well said.
Oh, man. All right.
Well
so
said.
episode suggestions. Unless you have anything else to add for that, B.
No.
Okay.
I feel fulfilled. I feel complete.
Okay. All right. So, what is your episode suggestion then for our listeners if they enjoyed this?
Number 57, stop making decisions from your heart.
Ooh, B. And final takeaway?
You will never know what you're truly worth if you keep allowing yourself to settle for less.
That resonated so hard because that's what
Mic
my
drop.
dad very much used to say. Never settle for less. That's a whole different conversation. Yeah, that was a mic drop. Great work. My episode suggestion for our listeners is number 24, how to honor personal boundaries. This is something when I coach people and they're struggling with self-worth, oftentimes it's a boundary issue as well. Those two typically go hand in hand. So I would strongly recommend that episode. My final takeaway would be just like you said,
Don't steal
never
mine.
No, this is what my dad used to say to me time and time again. And it is never settle for less. But here's the thing, and I'll add that caveat, is never settle for less than what you deserve. And that should be based off of evidence that you give yourself, not anyone else. That's the thing. If you don't show evidence to yourself of how deserving you are, you don't know what less is. And so therefore you don't know that you're settling. So don't give yourself that door to walk through, and that's what I'll say here. We're really excited for you to join us in our next episode 113. Do you believe it's possible for you? Which does a hop, step, and a skip on over from self-worth to self-belief, which Bianca and I have been building over our entire life. It has been a challenge for us, and we're so excited to share with each one of our listeners what we do to help build that and you know, the possibility. There's such a gleam of hope and possibility, and I never want to take that away from anyone, but I definitely want to get into this episode on, you know, if you're a listener and if you have a question around this, let's get into some of that stuff. So thank you for joining us on this episode, and that's all I got on my end.
Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.